OBS looks weird, but I think it's basically working. So I'm just going to start. Well, I had my camera up here so I could show this handy little tool that I got, but since it only likes to focus on things that are this far away from it, I don't think it's helping. So I'm going to move this back down. And I prepped a whole bunch of stuff to paint today. So I have these little, I have a few of these little gargoyles. So I'm going to paint these little dudes, and I'm just going to use pastels probably on these to make them look a little less like little rubber toys. And then I have a few of these books that I'm going to actually paint. I'm just going to make them like funny little occult books and stuff that I can put on my Oddities shelf. These are actually supposed to go in the gargoyle's hands, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think. I bought them as a set, and they were, the description said that they were part of a Monster High school playset for the library. So, yeah, I think that's how they go. They're supposed to go like this, but I kind of like them better by themselves, so I'm not going to put them together. And I'm probably not going to do the gargoyles today just because I don't want to get out pastels and paints, so I took my paints out today. But I prepped those, so I may do those next time. I want to put a quick base coat on this little mini toy box that I bought because it was $1.50 and I couldn't resist. I would like to age and kind of distress this little, yeah, see, this is this low camera. This dress form that I bought is for 1/6 scale clothes, but you know, in just the white it looks very plasticky and Barbie-like. So I was thinking I would give it a wash with probably black to kind of age and distress it a bit. Just make it look a little less like a toy, a little more realistic. And then I also found, actually in the scrapbooking section at the fabric store, these little dolls, and they're actually plastic, but I sprayed them with Mr. Super Clear to make them matte so they'll look like they're porcelain, because they're supposed to be little Frozen Charlotte dolls. So I'm going to distress these too. I got 3 of those. And I'm going to keep one and offer the other 2 in my shop for sale. It was kind of one of those that I allowed myself to indulge on something that I definitely didn't need and didn't have room for in my budget, because I figured I could sell the extras and recoup the cost. So I'm going to probably start with the books because I want to paint a white base coat on them. And I'm trying to go lightest to darkest with my painting today, so I don't have to get up and change my water a bunch of times. So let me grab a palette. One of these days I'm going to actually clean my palettes. This is like one of my cleaner palettes, and it's still clearly messy. I think this one might just be a lost cause. I may have to save this one and only use it with black paint. Oh no. I have another couple that I haven't cleaned. I almost just want to buy more because it's such a pain to clean them when it's been sitting there for a while. Grab some little stir sticks. actually going to go with mixing half white and half of this kind of a parchment color. And I want the books to look aged, but not super aged. So I'm going to lighten them up from this just a little bit. And I think I'm going to do one of the books in a dark green. And I want to do another one in dark red, like a burgundy. And I think I'm going to do the other one in black. I want to paint them like they're really nice, you know, antique-y, leather-bound books. So I also am going to be doing the edges with a gold leaf in my antique gold. I may do one in silver leaf too, because I think that would be kind of cool. So let me get just a little bit of this. I actually don't have as much of this one as I thought I did, so I think I'm going to save this, the parchment color that I'm going to mix up for the top coat. I don't remember what I mixed this up for, but I'm glad that I have it because I think that the parchment colored pages are going to look better than white. I think that might have even been too much white. Oops. And I just sprayed my table. Maybe it wasn't too much. I think this is probably a nice aged paper color here. That color. I think that's going to work well. Napkin over here just so I can keep my hands somewhat clean. Keep the stir sticks out of my working area. I think I'm actually going to take this hoodie off. Just so I don't get it covered. Okay, so actually I'm going to open this again and this one. We're doing a wash. I'm going to want that one. So I'm going to do the base coat so that this can dry. while I work on the other things. Because I think that painting the books is probably going to be the least exciting to watch. I'm going to end up with a little space right where my fingers are because I don't want to paint my fingers. I don't usually care, but I have a lot of little stuff I want to get done today. And I don't want to have paint all over my hands when I just started. Alright, so I'm going to do a couple of coats of white because it's not quite covering everything up. I just want to cover up all of the little spots in here because I don't want it to look like stone. I want it to look like a real book. Like it's leather and parchment. So, I think it's probably going to take a couple of base coats to get a flat, even finish. And then I can put the colors on. But, like I said, I think it's going to be more interesting to watch the other stuff than the book painting. So I want to get these out of the way and drying so I can get each coat on in between my other projects for the day. So I'm thinking for these, when they're finished, I want to actually paint things on the inside so I can use them in my doll photography and have them sort of open and displayed onto a page. And I was thinking about what kind of things would be on a little Oddities shelf with, you know, jars full of like gargoyle scales and bat wings and stuff like that for mixing potions and whatnot. So I think I'm probably gonna look up some ideas for like witchy kind of things that I can put on there for like spells and potions. But obviously, I've seen Supernatural. I don't intend to accidentally conjure any tulpas or anything. So I'm going to make sure that none of it is actual real witchy stuff, because I'm not taking any chances here. Anyone who's been to my house can tell you I got enough creepy shit going on here without inviting any restless spirits. Okay, there's one coat on those. So, let me rinse my brush and my fingers. Kind of scooch those off to the side for now. Got different music today. I wanted to try a different playlist because I've been using the same one for kind of a while now. I mean, I like the music on that playlist. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that I don't want it to get old for people trying to watch my stream. So, yeah, I picked a different one. I think this one was called Ghost. The last one was called Trouble. This one's called Ghost. And I kind of like it. It's a little bit more chill than the other one. This one feels more like Silent Hill vibes, and the other one kind of reminds me of Resident Evil. Which, if you're not a video game person, you're probably sitting there going, aren't those the same thing? And they're abso-fucking-lutely not. Okay. Hey, Julie. I am distressing some miniatures today. So I think I'm going to do the Frozen Charlottes next, because I want to do a few coats of different colors on them to give them a good patina. So I want to start with, I think, actually the parchment color. And then I'm going to go in with, this is actually a custom brown that I mixed for painting doll freckles, but it's basically just a neutral brown. So I think I'm going to do that as my second coat. And then the final coat I'm going to go in with is light cinnamon. So it's more of a darker, warm brown. So I think between those three, it'll give them a nice variation and make it look like, you know, accumulated age and dirt, as opposed to something that I just painted on there. Trying to think how I'm best going to do this, because I want to really water the paint down. And I think I might just take just the tiniest little drop out of here with a stir stick. Because I really don't need much. I want to water this down a lot. And I bought these brushes on clearance at the fabric store. And they're on clearance because they're, I don't know if it'll show up enough on camera, but they're kind of junky. Like they're a little bent out of shape. They're just not, they probably sat on their shelves a little too long and got handled too much. But they're actually really, really great. I love buying clearance brushes that are beat up like this for doing pastels and for doing like the kind of wash painting that I'm gonna do today. Because you don't want a nice crisp brush, you want one that's kind of softer and has a less defined shape. I hate the stickers on these brushes, man. The end of the handle just gets gross and sticky. And if I were thinking, I would have peeled them off and like washed all the stickiness off before I started my stream. But of course I wasn't thinking. I never do. I think this one may actually be, the square ones in general may actually be a little too big to use on these guys. No, I think that'll be actually just about perfect for what I'm looking for. Okay, so. I'm gonna water this down a lot. I don't want to just pour it in. I'm hesitant to do that, but I think that might be the best way to go. Okay, yeah, of course I made a mess. But mix this up. You almost, you kind of just want a watercolor consistency when you're doing a wash. Gonna brush. It's gonna be hard to show, but I'm gonna brush it and let it drip. And you don't want it to completely cover. You just want it to get into the little crevices. I have this little bit of green something that was in there. There we go. So I'm going to start right at the top. Okay, so you can kind of see how it's sort of pooling in there. I'm just going to encourage it to finish dripping down this crease right here. And this is going to help make it look aged. So, there's one of three. Put that over in my little thingy on my stand for now. And I may actually not go in with the really dark brown, because looking at this parchment color on the white, it's already darker than I thought it would be. And I think the dark brown might be too much. So I think I'm going to do 2 coats of the parchment and then go in with the light brown. And I have little fuzzies that I think got sealed in with the Mr. Super Clear by accident. I did actually have to seal these in the dark, so I didn't get to examine them super closely. We had a lot of storms here, so the first day that I had that was clear, when it stopped raining and wasn't too humid to use MSC, it was already pretty dark out. So I do have some lint in there, but I figure if there's little pieces, it's fine. It'll kind of just add to the look. I just want to pick off the really big pieces. I think I need to add a little bit to this one. Just to get it pooling a little bit more in some of these areas. I really want to get it pooling well in the face, because I want to get that nice and defined. Just all the areas that dirt and grime and stuff would pool on a real antique doll. So I think I mentioned that I will be offering 2 of these for sale, and possibly one of the books. And if I have more people that would like the little frozen Charlottes, I can always go grab more. Don't roll. I'm gonna do a little bit more on this one. I don't want it to completely dry before I add more, because I want it to all kind of accumulate together. Want to get in each of these little creases and crevices of the little sculpted hair. And in every single fold of the dress. It's pulling a little too much at the bottom, so I'm gonna just hold her upside down for a minute and let that start to dry. Get the crease in the legs a little better. Okay, that looks better. A little bit more color on her this time. So we'll pop her over here and work on the last one. Then I'm going to go back and add to the second one again, and then come back and add to this third one again, and then we'll do the brown. So this is kind of a process, but it does go kind of quickly since you don't want to let anything completely dry. So you sort of gotta get into a rhythm And it does become a lot of back and forth. But this is why I find it easier to do multiple pieces at once rather than trying to do one at a time. Because you're not sitting around waiting in between the drying. Paintbrush is, the stickiness, it's sticking right to my finger and it's making it hard to roll the brush the way that I want to. Definitely should have washed the stickiness off before doing these. I just got excited because I had new brushes and I wanted to use them. So, I know subtle painting doesn't always translate well in this lighting, but I think you can kind of see the colors starting to show up on her. So, I'm gonna go back to the second one and add another coat before the first coat fully dries so that they'll kind of sort of blend together, but not totally blend together, if that makes sense. Aren't they cute? Yeah, I found them actually in the scrapbooking section at Joann's. They're Tim Holtz brand. I love the Tim Holtz brand. They always have such fun little like ephemera things. I actually have to count the number of knobs on my little jewelry box that I use for my craft supplies and go back, because I bought this jewelry box at the thrift store and almost none of the drawers have drawer pulls on them. And when I was in the fabric store in the scrapbooking section this past time, they had some tiny, I think they were like brads for scrapbooking, but they looked exactly like miniature drawer pulls, and they're the perfect size for my jewelry box / craft storage. So I need to count how many I need and then go back and pick some up. They're actually modeled after the Frozen Charlotte dolls, which were really popular, very inexpensive, teeny tiny porcelain dolls. They actually, this is probably about half the size of what a normal Frozen Charlotte would have been. They were very, very small. Like, they would fit in a little girl's purse or pocket, and they would usually come in sculpted with like minimal clothing on, like undergarments, and you would sew them little tiny outfits. And a lot of little girls learned how to sew by making clothes for their Frozen Charlotte dolls. And I don't know exactly why they ended up becoming associated with the Frozen Charlotte story, but the Frozen Charlotte story is of a very vain little girl who went to a fancy ball and wanted to show off her dress and insisted on not wearing a coat so she could show off her dress, and froze to death in her carriage on the way to the dress, or on the way to the ball, so that she could show off her fancy dress. And somehow these little porcelain dolls that everybody had and learned to sew on became known as Frozen Charlotte dolls. But I think that they do look like little ghosts. All the Frozen Charlotte dolls to me look like little ghostly children. I just think they're the coolest thing. And I've never found a real one in person. So I got really excited when I saw these because it's pretty much the closest that I've ever come to actually finding a real Frozen Charlotte doll in the wild. I just want to get into all of these little folds. I think this one's looking good, so let me check on this first one and make sure I don't need to touch up anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to mix up the brown and start on that. Debating if I want to do the dress form in the same colors because I've already got them mixed up. I was planning on doing a black wash on it though, and I still think that a black wash would probably fit with my aesthetic a little better. So yeah, we're gonna wait on that one. And there's YouTube asking if I still want my playlist going, and obviously I do. Okay, so I think I'm gonna leave the dark one out just because I think that these are so light that I'm not sure I'm gonna need it. I think it might be overwhelmingly dark. Oh, I hate that. When your paint is not coming out at all and then you accidentally dump all of it out. Damn it. Alright, well I can scoop that back in later. I just need to mix up a space for some wash. So, I'm going to take just about that much. And see if I can pour my water out without making a mess this time. Oh, nope. Oh. Oops, and I just stuck the corner into the paint. Oh my god. Well, there goes my last paper towel. Probably gonna have to grab more at some point. Whoopsies. You know what? I'm actually going to grab a spoon because I think that's going to be the easiest way to transfer water. headphones are being weird. Okay, there's my sound. Alright. Well, since I have a spoon, let me try and scoop some of this back into the container. Oh. It's just... Uh-oh, I lost my sound again. I think I need to... unplug and replug the headphones? Nope. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Okay. Come on, stream. Okay, there we go. Lost my internet connection for a second there. Okay. Alright, that should at least keep the mess contained. It's not mixing well. Of course, my paint is not cooperating now. Alright, let me start on the first one again. And I'm actually going to do this. Grab a little bit of paint. Water it down. Because my paint is just not mixing on this side for whatever reason. Okay. Okay, so when you do the darker wash, you do actually want this damp. Not wet, but damp. And you're gonna just give it a little brush so that it takes the color everywhere but the creases. And see, this is already so dark that I definitely think that I'm not going to need the really dark brown. going to go over the dark wash with the parchment color just to kind of blend everything. Alright, this sticky brush is really annoying me. I need to do something about this. A little bit of paper towel. Alright, I'm just going to wrap the sticky bit. Just trying to blow the bubbles out of it. Okay, so you can see that it's darker, but it's not dark, and that's about what I want. Because this is going to dry even darker than it is right now. So, I'm actually going to go in and take just a tiny bit of color out of some of these areas that have gotten a little too dark. And this is where the process of doing wash painting really gets a bit repetitive, but if you're somebody like me who really likes tiny detail work, this is the most fun part, because you get to see it start to come together finally. So you want it to stay darkest in the areas that would be naturally kind of the grimiest. If you imagine this being a little doll that had sat in an attic for half a century, you know, the dirt is going to pool in areas like under the arms and in between the legs more than it's going to pool somewhere like, you know, the top areas of the face. So you want those areas to be slightly darker. Just want to get this little bubble. There we go. Go back in with the parchment on the raised areas. Okay, so you can kind of see how that's pooling in some areas more than others, and that's exactly what you want. So you don't want it to look like it was brushed on. You want it to look like this is a toy that was sort of forgotten about and just accumulated dirt and dust and just general attic grunge. So I just add a little drip of the brown and then pick it up and kind of tap it and see where the brown is pooling. Make sure that it's not pooling somewhere that looks unnatural. So I have almost too much brown in around the neck. So I'm going to take the parchment and kind of swoop it up. And you can see that didn't lift it, but it lightened it. So now it's a little more of an even color. Oops, that was a little too much color in that crease. Okay, so I think this is just about done. I may do one more coat once this dries, but I think this one is nicely aged. Looks like naturally accumulated grime to me. So that's what I'm going for. I'm gonna set her aside. Just move this little leggy here. Actually, I want to hold up because I don't know how well it's showing up on camera. So this is the one I just did, and this is the one before it. So you can see how it's definitely darker, and you can definitely see the difference. Probably should have done this when I had only the parchment with one of the white ones. But yeah, you can see this one looks grimier. It looks like it sat up in a dusty, dingy attic, or maybe fell between the creases of the floorboards and wasn't found for years and years. So it looks like a proper antique. And that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I'm going to start with the wash from the top down. Where is my music? I think I need to restart the playlist. There we go. Alright, so let me do the wash. And brush the excess away. I don't know, this is really hard to do on the camera without blocking the camera, but you don't really want to use any pressure when you're doing the wipe after the wash. You just want to lift from the surface. There's like a little fuzzy that got in there. Damn it. So you just want to wipe the surface layer as lightly as possible. Because you still want it in all of those lovely little creases. And I'm going to do the same thing and just sort of dab at the top of each crease and let it kind of flow down. And I think I want to do this one a little darker than the other one just to see which I like better. Those bubbles. I hate the bubbles. Alright, now that I got it in everywhere, give it a little tap. And then if it looks like there's too much, just dab a little of it up onto the brush. Dab your brush on your paper towel. Oops, I took a little more than I meant to there. But that's okay, because I'm going to come back in with the parchment color now. And do the same thing. And let that sort of blend. Okay. Now where it's pooling here a little bit too much, just going to tap it to pick it up. Kind of nudge it back into the crease there too, because it's coming out too much into the surface. There's a really delicate balance when you're aging pieces, where you want it to look sort of artfully done, but not intentional. I end up doing a lot of aging painting and wash painting with costuming. The difference is that's usually on fabric for me, so it behaves a little differently, but the process is basically the same. Okay, so I think this one looks good. I know I said I was going to do it darker, and I don't think it actually came out darker, but I did use more of the brown than on the last one. Maybe I'll add a little bit more here, just because I do want to do one a little bit darker just to see how I like it. I think I might have lost Julie when I lost my internet connection. Whoops. Hey Casey. I am aging some miniatures today. Okay. So this one is now a little bit darker than the other one. So I have a couple to compare. And you know, this one actually didn't dry as dark as I thought. So I may go in with the darker brown after all and do just a layer. Oh, good. Yeah, so this one, definitely I can see where I did the darker on this one, and I think it does look better. So I'm going to go back to the first one and redo it. Because you can really only see on the areas where it pooled very, very well. You can't see on the areas where I went back and lightened it because I thought it was too dark. So I'm gonna fix that. And I do like the face being a little darker, so I'm gonna do this one like that. Yeah, it does look kind of creepy. I love it. Casey, I don't know if you know what Frozen Charlotte dolls are, but I was explaining earlier. So these ones are actually plastic, and they're just like Tim Holtz little ephemera pieces that I found at Joann Fabrics. And I just like fangirled hard because finding a real Frozen Charlotte doll in the wild is like one of my thrifting goals. So Frozen Charlotte dolls were little porcelain dolls that were very easy to find, very inexpensive, and they were very tiny. So they were about this size. I think the smallest ones were probably not much bigger than this. And they did go up to like a regular doll size, but they generally were made small enough to fit in a little girl's pocket or purse. They were popular in the Victorian era, and they would generally be sculpted with very minimal clothing, usually only undergarments, because the object of a Frozen Charlotte doll was for you to sew her a beautiful dress. Because the story of Frozen Charlotte is the story of a very vain little girl who, on her way to a fancy ball in the dead of winter, decided she wanted everybody to see her beautiful dress in the carriage on the ride to the ball. And that was more important than keeping herself warm. So she took her coat off and froze in the carriage on the way to the ball. So somehow these little dolls became associated with the Frozen Charlotte story. And they were really popular. Like they're not really hard to find if you go antiquing. Like they're kind of just something people didn't hang on to. So it's hard to find them in good condition because these were like the Victorian equivalent of dime store dolls. So pretty much if they broke, you threw it away and you got a new one. And they did break because, you know, they were given to children and they were made out of porcelain. So they didn't hold up from Victorian times to now very well. So if you find them, they pretty much will look grimy and dirty like this. Yeah, I think they did originate in Germany. That sounds right. Okay, I think this girl is done. She's looking pretty good now. That's really funny. My niece's name is Charlotte too, and she also it was a challenge to get her to keep her clothes on as an infant. So I just found that hilarious because of the Frozen Charlotte story. She was just a perpetually naked baby for a very long time. Okay, so there's the wash. And there's actually a Living Dead doll called Frozen Charlotte, too, who got her name from the Frozen Charlotte legend. Well, not legend. I guess it's just a story. Maybe it's a legend. I don't know. So I got really excited when I saw these on the shelf because I love the little Frozen Charlotte dolls. And I feel like my little mini Oddities display definitely needed to have one on the shelf. So even though they're plastic, I think they look much better with a little bit of a dirt wash on them. Yes! Yeah, okay. I was pretty sure it was a poem first. Yeah. Yeah, I think there might even be a version of it in the Grimm's Fairy Tales. Because I have the complete Grimm's Fairy Tales collected, and I feel like I remember reading it in there. Okay. You know, I was getting kind of annoyed that it's pooling so much around the neck, but honestly, I kind of like how it looks now. So I may leave it on this one. Alright, let's take a look at the first one. So here's the first one. And I think I may put just a little drop of the darker brown into my paint mix here and do one final coat on these, just because they are drying lighter. Acrylic paint usually dries darker, but I think because I watered it down so much, it's drying lighter. And I do want it to be nice and dark. I want them to look extra old and grimy. Sticky brush. I'm not going to peel the stickers off of the other ones yet. I'm going to leave the stickers on until I get a chance to wash the stickiness off. Let me add. Alright. Let me shake this one up so I don't do the same thing and accidentally empty half my paint container when I just want a couple of drops. Okay. Tap that back in. Still not really mixing well. I don't know what's going on with this particular little section of my palette, but I'm gonna put it here instead. There we go, that one's mixing up much nicer. Okay, do the wash first. Oops, I somehow missed an entire arm with the wash. Whoopsies. Alright. Oh, I've done that before. Yep. You know, I lost 2 entire doll faces last week. Couldn't find them anywhere. I had apparently wrapped them in fabric to keep them from getting scratched, because I had like a whole bunch of stuff out on the table. Which was not a bad idea in itself, it's just that I forgot that I had done that. So I'm like furiously searching my table and my house and couldn't find them anywhere. I asked my mom, I'm like, I'm really desperate. Is there any chance you moved anything that was on the table that I might have put doll faces into? And she just goes, your dolls are scary. I don't touch them. I'm like, damn it, I have to figure out what I did with these dolls. I'm kind of annoyed with myself that I did that, because while it was a good idea, I should have known that I wouldn't remember they were in there and like left myself a note or something. So I was going to put dolls together on stream last week, but I couldn't find them. But it's okay, because I ended up doing eyes instead. Okay, so I think this is going to give me the effect that I want. It looks a little red on camera, but it's not. It's definitely brown. Not going that creepy. So I'm going to take a little bit of this off. Just these bottom areas around the dress, because I feel like it's giving too much shadowing on areas that should be surface areas. Okay, now I think it's good. I'm going to do a little tap. Make sure all of the dripping is falling where I want it to fall. Add a little to her legs too, because I forgot to do her knees. Okay. So, yeah, this is the one I just did with just the brown, and this is the one I just did just now with the darker, warmer brown. I think I'm going to leave this one as is and see which one I like better once they dry. Put the second coat of white on these books because I want to get this parchment color on them before it dries too much. So I think I'm going to leave the outside actually because I'm going to do those all in such dark colors. So this is pretty good paint that it's getting all of those little speckles covered in just 2 coats. This is just apple barrel paint from Walmart. But this is honestly like one of my favorite acrylic paints for base coats because it goes on really evenly and really pretty opaque. The black especially, I love. It's almost a 1-coat black. On some surfaces it is 1-coat black, which is something that's kind of hard to find in, you know, inexpensive acrylic paints. Okay. I just want this to be a mostly even color so I can put the parchment color over it. And I'm gonna, after I seal the parchment color on, I'm gonna actually do the same aging process on the books because I want them all to look like old spell books and occult books. Wish I could afford nice wireless headphones with a microphone. This cord really gets in the way. I don't know how I let that big old glob sit there. Just try and get that a little more even. I mean, I guess it's okay if it's not super even, because if it's truly antique books, they're not going to be perfectly smooth paper. They probably would have been printed on handmade paper, which would have been really rough and uneven. Okay, rinse off the white and start on the parchment. I feel like the first half of this playlist is very different to the second half of this playlist. The one that I normally use is a little bit more consistent. But I wanted to try different music today, just to see if there was another one that I liked as much, so that it wouldn't get quite so old for other people listening. Because I kind of just tune out the music, to be honest. It's more for people watching my streams than it is for me. I'm just happy with any background noise. Anything so I don't have to listen to the creepy, noisy thing that lives in the back of my house. I don't know if I've ever actually talked about my creepy haunted house on my streams, but yeah, my house is haunted. And one of the spirits I'm fine with. He's my little ghost boy, and he has moved with me every place that I've ever lived. Pretty much since I was a baby. But the thing in the back of the house, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure where it came from. It just sort of showed up a few years ago. Well, more than a few years ago. Probably more like 10 years ago at this point. It started as mumbling that I would hear from my brother's old room in his closet. And at first it was kind of creepy, and then it just got really annoying because anytime it was quiet in the house, I'd just hear this thing mumbling in the back closet. And I went back in there and I looked to make sure that there wasn't like a radio or anything that could have been causing it. There's nothing in there that should make noise. So, I don't know, you know, it's just a spooky ghost, and it has very nasty vibes. It does not feel friendly. And it smells kind of bad sometimes. And I started trying to evict it because it was bothering me. It was just annoying the crap out of me. Like, it wasn't doing anything. It was just loud. Like, it would bang back there sometimes, and I would hear it grumbling, and it just felt unfriendly. And I decided I wanted it gone. So I started trying to get rid of it, and apparently that made it angry, because it then moved out of the closet and started coming into other parts of the house and setting off smoke detectors with sulfur smells. It threw things at me in the kitchen. And this isn't just me. Like, other people who have come into my house have said that that back part of the house just feels really unwelcoming, and they've seen, like, shadows back there and weird things back there, and sometimes eyes. And it's like, you can kind of see on my camera that my house goes back that direction. There's a window back there that's kind of in between the two bedrooms. And at a birthday party I had probably almost 10 years ago at this point, I had a bunch of us out sitting on my patio, and it was dark out, and they looked in the window and saw eyes, like glowing red eyes in the window. And the window is high enough up that, like, you can't see a person's eyes in that window if there's somebody standing in there. But the eyes were just in the window, staring out. And it scared them enough that they were like, hey, why don't we move our party somewhere else? So yeah, other people have seen it and heard it, and it's just very unfriendly. And the more I tried to get rid of it, the angrier it seemed to get. So eventually I kind of came to a compromise. I was like, look, you stop launching things across the kitchen, and I guess you can just stay in the back closet. I won't try to get rid of you anymore. So now I don't try to get rid of it. And I generally kind of avoid even talking about it, because I feel like I don't want to invite it to become more active. But yeah, sometimes that's why I don't like to be in this house without some kind of background noise on. Like, even if I'm not watching it, I'll put on Netflix or something, because I don't like to be in this house when it's quiet. I can hear it back there grumbling. Like, it just talks. It talks all the time, and I can't understand anything that it says, because it's just, like, grumbling under its breath, but it's there all the time. Sometimes it smells, sometimes you just hear it, sometimes there's both. But I like my other ghost. He's fine. He can come with me anywhere I move. I'm definitely... One of the reasons that I'm looking forward to getting out of this house is hopefully leaving the nasty thing in the back closet behind. But yeah, I'm fine with taking the little ghost boy with me. He likes toys, so he hangs out in my areas a lot. He used to actually take my toys. Sometimes, like, I would have random dolls in my collection would just, like, disappear for a little while, and then they would reappear in locations that didn't really make sense for them to be there. Like, they would be on top of the fridge, or one time in the back of the fridge, or like under my bed. Okay, so these are the two different browns again. And I like them both, but I think I like this one better. So I'm not going to do the darker brown on this middle one, but I do want to do more on her face. Let's see, Ghost Boy plays with my toys. Yeah, he puts things in weird places. So I bought him his own doll, and I left it in a corner with a little note that was like, hey, this is yours. You can play with it anytime. Please stop hiding my toys, though, so my stuff doesn't go missing anymore. But sometimes I'll find his doll in strange places. So, yeah, I definitely believe in ghosts. I don't know that I believe in things like demons, but I do believe in spirits that have unwelcoming energy because I have one in my house. And I think that that's probably what most people think of as demons, but I don't think that they are anything special, really. I think that they're just spirits that hung around that were probably pretty unpleasant when they were alive. But you know, I'm not even sure that that's what it is. I think that maybe they're just angry because they don't have anywhere to go. I'm kind of jealous, man. I want to stay at the Chelsea. I've heard that place has some fun ghosts. I really want to go stay at the Overlook Hotel, but I feel like that might be tempting fate. I'm kind of a weirdness magnet. Like, if weird things are going to happen in a haunted place, like, they're going to happen when I'm there. I might not even notice them, but they're going to happen when I'm there. Like, the thing with the eyes in the window, I was really drunk. It was my 21st or 22nd birthday party. I was really drunk. I didn't even notice that the eyes were in the window, but, like, everybody else there apparently noticed. That's not unusual for me, for everybody else to notice something weird, and and my oblivious ass to completely miss it. But yeah, I'm kind of a good person to have around if you want weird things to happen. I don't know if there's just like a weird magnetic energy with me that causes things to behave unusually, but even like electronics sometimes don't behave normally around me. I am one of those people that will get like static shocks from things a lot more frequently than what some people would consider normal. So I don't know if it's something to do with energies. And I know there's a lot of people that really hate, especially like in the Oddities collecting community, really hate belief in ghosts because they think that it creates a lot of stigma around, you know, the oddities that they are trying to sell. Specifically things like Ouija boards and, you know, human bones. But, I mean, personally, I kind of have to believe in an afterlife. Like, I've come to terms with the fact that I'm going to have a much shorter life on Earth than most people that I know. And the only way that I've been able to maintain some semblance of happiness with the short life that I'm going to have is by believing that there is something afterwards. So, to those people I say, I fully understand where you're coming from, but I just think you're wrong. My experiences tell me differently. And I say that as someone who genuinely is a bit of a skeptic, and I do always try to find a rational belief, or not belief, a rational explanation for things before I choose to believe that something is a ghost. But again, I've seen and heard things that lead me to believe that there are ghosts, and people do see them sometimes. And whether you choose to believe that there are ghosts that are sentient and aware of their existence and interacting with the world, or that ghosts exist only as, some sort of energy echo, I think that it's a lot more rational to believe that, the soul is a thing that exists than to believe that we're just powered by random electrical signals and that, when we die, that just stops. Like, that's crazy to me. That's probably the weirdest tangent I've been on one of my streams so far. But I love talking about weird paranormal stuff. Oh, that's right. Okay, I remember reading about that. That they turned the Chelsea into apartments. Ugh. Bummer. Well, I can still keep the Overlook on my bucket list. I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to afford to stay there because it's crazy expensive now, but I would love to stay there. And I completely understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I've had that kind of feeling, like, in cemeteries, specifically. Which, for somebody who is as afraid of death as I admittedly am, like, I feel weirdly comfortable in most cemeteries. And I choose to believe that that's because there are spirits there, and the spirits understand that I can feel them, and that, they're okay with people being there as long as they're being respectful. That's a big thing for me, too, is, like, if you're going to visit a cemetery, you need to be respectful. Like, it does kind of bother me that it's, like, such a thing for goth kids to go into cemeteries and take pictures, like, sitting all over people's graves. And I don't know how many of them... I know it seems like a weird thing, but, like, if I were going to do that, I would have to at least, like, ask beforehand and wait until I feel like I get permission from anything that might be there before I would feel comfortable sitting on somebody's gravestone, And I think that's why I feel really peaceful at cemeteries despite being terrified of death, is because somehow whatever spirits are there, they can tell that I'm not some disrespectful little prick who's just gonna come along and, like, sprawl out on their gravestone. It's sort of one of those things that, like, even if you don't believe in ghosts, like, just ask, just in case. It doesn't hurt anybody for you to ask. And if you're wrong, okay, well, you feel silly for a minute, but if you're right, it's just respectful. Yeah, see, that makes a lot of sense to me. Because my personal belief in people having souls and souls having to go somewhere actually comes from the law of conservation of energy. Like, the first time that really, like, hit home to me, that people are powered by some form of energy, and energy doesn't just disappear ever. Like, energy cannot be created or destroyed, obviously. So, like, okay, some of the energy obviously would be converted by, you know, the decomposition of your body into the ground and be converted into energy for the things that eat you. But, like, I feel like there's still a lot of energy powering your body that's unaccounted for, if that's the case. And, like, where does that go? It has to go somewhere. So my personal theory, actually, and again, this is like another super weird tangent for me to go on an art stream, but, like, my personal theory on what I think could potentially happen after we die is that if you have made peace with the fact that, you know, you're dying and your body's not going to be here anymore, you can choose to either scatter yourself, or you can kind of hang together. And the ones that hang together and don't scatter themselves are ghosts. And the people who do, that energy recombines and becomes a new soul with pieces of other souls, if that makes sense. And that's, like, that would also account for the occasional stories you hear that are super bizarre, that are, like, weirdly accurate stories of reincarnation. Because if enough parts of the same soul reconstitute into a new soul, then yeah, you might get pieces of memory from the original soul that remain intact. And I think that that would kind of explain why even the people who have these, like, reincarnation experiences, they never have, like, a complete memory of their supposed previous life. It's almost always, like, pieces. And they may have, like, really specific memories of certain events, but not, like, an internal timeline of the person's entire life. And I think that that could potentially account for that, because it's just, like, enough pieces of that person came back together that those memories sort of reformed. And I don't know, maybe that makes no sense, but I think that's kind of a beautiful way to imagine life, is that, yeah, maybe you might be gone, but at some point, maybe you do come back, even if it is only, you know, part of you. Yeah, I have known several people who died, and I actually had recurring dreams where I would interact with one of them for years and years and years after they died. And it was not, like, it was never, I don't think it was my own mind, like, making that happen, because they never said things to me that I would have said to myself. It was usually, like, uncomfortable truths that were being delivered by this person, and that was very much the kind of thing that would have happened while they were alive. And I just feel like, I don't know that there is, I mean, I guess it could have been my subconscious, but, like, I can't create images that I haven't seen. Like, I have mild aphantasia. I can't make mental pictures of things that I haven't seen in real life. So the fact that I actually had these interactions just, to me, feels like something that only could have happened if it was really them. And I know there's going to be people who don't want to believe, but this is just my experiences, and they make it too hard for me to continue to be skeptical, personally. So, obviously, other people will have had different experiences, and that's fine. But I can't be a skeptic with the experiences that I have personally had. It's just too hard. Yeah, that too. Like recurring nightmares that don't really seem to have any real reason. Like, I think that I may have been a witch in a previous life, or like at least was accused of being a witch, because I used to have recurring dreams of being chased and literally hunted by like family and friends. And that's just like such a bizarre thing, because I had these dreams as a child. That's like a really weird thing for a child to have. And I did have a lot of childhood trauma, so like I don't know, maybe that does account for it, but I just don't know, man. It was really bizarre. Okay. So I put my camera on the different side of the table because I thought maybe the lighting would be better, and I'm realizing now that the lighting is just as bad. Oh man, I hope the new house has better lighting. But here's my little, oh geez. Here is my little dress form. And I don't think I want to do more to it. I think I like just this black wash. I think that kind of came out perfect, actually. I don't know that I even want to do a second coat. I feel like it's exactly how I want it. So I think that's going to suit my aesthetic for my product photos really well. So I'm going to set this aside and just seal it when it's dry. I kind of love that. Okay. Put you over there. Let's see. Oh no. Oh no, I wasn't paying attention. I got little gray spots from my black wash all over my books. Oh. Well, you know, maybe it's not so bad because I do want them to be kind of antique-like. So I think I may actually leave the little spots. I might actually do some more in different colors. Yeah, actually. Let me grab some of this brown. Oh yeah, okay. See, that worked out for the best. Yeah, that actually looks really good now, actually. So, I'm kind of glad that I spilled that black because now they look properly aged. And here's the third one. So I'm gonna put a little bit of the brown in the little crease in there, just to age them a little bit further. Oh yeah, see, I have a lot of apocalypse dreams, but I, you know, I read and watch a lot of those kinds of stories, so that makes more sense for me. But yeah, that's definitely an unusual thing to have dreams about when it's not something that you're thinking about on a daily basis. I actually got really into dream interpretation for a brief period because I kept having those recurring dreams of being hunted. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I don't remember what all of the books said that was supposed to mean, but I do remember thinking that doesn't relate to my life at all. I don't know where this is coming from.